hand the meeting over to Amy from Kentucky. Welcome to Open Lounge. So good to
Thank you
have you
so
here.
much, Maya. Thank you for
Thank
staying in
you.
contact with me. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to everyone who said hello because I love that the new man commented on the warmth of the group, and that's what we're all about. That's what we want to be about, right? My name is Amy Spain Duncan. My sobriety date is March the 6th of 2010. My home group is Lambton. We're an eclectic group of folks, and I love my home group. My home group raised me. It's where I learned to put away chairs and go to a business meeting and shake hands with the newcomer and all of those wonderful things. And when I was new, I wasn't sure if this was going to work, but I really just kind of out of options. And so I went all in with this, and they gave me direction when I needed it. I am sponsored by a woman who is sponsored, and I sponsor women who sponsor women who sponsor women. I love that. I love that part of the program. I love the women I sponsor, and I love being sponsored. Um, Home group sobriety date sponsor. I'm an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. And I'll just qualify very quickly. I have an allergic reaction to alcohol when I drink. It sets off in me a phenomenon of craving, and I cannot predict when or how I will stop drinking once I begin. I also have a brain that tells me drinking's a good idea, no matter how bad an idea it is. Everyone around me knows it's a bad idea, but my brain says this will be different, and here's how. So I love the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love the doctor's opinion. I love Bill's story, where I can relate and identify with the hopelessness and the progression of suicidal thoughts and thinking. And we watch Bill do in his story, and just the utter despair and incomprehensible demoralization that occurs in my relationship with alcohol. So, and I struggled with alcoholism my whole life. I didn't want to do anything about it until I was about 25. And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I hung around. I was a fringe member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was taken out again. and it took me 10 years to get back to you. And by the time I got back to you, all the things that I thought I would never do, I'd done. And all the things I thought would never happen had happened, because alcoholism is the annihilation of all things worthwhile. And I stayed in the ring with my disease in a fixed fight way too long. I'm hard headed, and I could not concede to my innermost self, that I was an alcoholic, and that I knew my life was unmanageable, but I could think of a million reasons why I was having trouble in personal relationships. I had little control of my emotional nature, all the things described on page 52 of our bedevilments. I could recognize that I was bedeviled as described in that on that page, but I couldn't connect the dots that it was alcoholism at the cause of this. And I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love this solution, so that one day at a time I don't have to take a drink. But AA does this weird thing, right, where we come in, we're like, man, I got to quit drinking. Drinking is causing me troubles. I'm having problems. And we're like, yeah, alcoholism, you got to quit drinking. And then you come in and you sit down, and we're like, you're going to need help with that. You're gonna need to first get some honesty in your life about your relationship with alcohol. Then when come to believe, you're gonna have to find or identify as a power greater than yourself, because it's gonna have to help you with this problem with alcohol you have. It. We're like, yeah, that makes sense. I'll do that. Sign me up. And then we kind of walk into step 4, and we go, surprise, the problem is you. Alcohol is but a symptom. And you've got to work on you, and we've got to make some changes, and we've got to do this work to create a spiritual shifting in your life. So my friend Larry the plumber talks about Alcoholics Anonymous turns you around. So first I have to look at my relationship with alcohol, and I got to get a concept of this higher power. So I'm kind of looking out of myself into the spiritual place, these ideas and theories and this evidence about my drinking. And then what I'm going to do in 4 and 5, 6, and 7 is I'm going to turn, and now I'm looking in the mirror, and I got to deal with me, and I got to deal with resentments and angers and fears and dishonesties and inconsiderations and all this this warped perception. I have a disease of perception, right? And I got to start sorting that out and shifting it. And then once I get up off my knees from 7, then I'm going to turn a little bit more in 8 and 9. And now I'm looking at personal relationships with the world and its people. Right? And how do I operate here now that I've admitted these things about myself? I've started this relationship with a higher power. I've looked at me. I've looked in the mirror. I've done this 4 and 5. I've gone back to my creator in 6 and 7. And now I got to make it right with you. And so I'm at 9, and really 10, 11, 12 is wash, rinse, repeat, right? So these are maintenance steps. This is continue, practice, improve, right? So I've done all this work, but how am I going to make the work solid and make sure it's maintained? Our book talks about spiritual maintenance over and over. It talks about if we fail to enlarge on our spiritual life, I got to keep moving. It's not like I get to just get here and stop. I have to enlarge on my spiritual life. I've got to continue with spiritual maintenance. Like everything is about this, right? And it drops these hints. It tells us in the book, the stories in the back tell us how we all found a personal relationship with the God of our understanding. The purpose of this book is to fit ourselves for maximum service. Like, how do you take somebody so badly mangled by alcoholism, so selfish, self-centered, egotistical, fearful, and dangerously antisocial, and insane. And you do this work, and all of a sudden we are useful once more, right? And I start understanding me, and I start understanding you a little bit better. And not only that, but there is in me, a selfish, self-centered person to my core, a true desire to be useful to someone else, man. That shifting, that spiritual shifting that we're talking about in these steps is incredible. I will tell you that when I got here, I had been homeless for about 4 years, living on the streets. And what happens to a person when they live in survival mode, right? So you don't have necessarily, you have housing concerns, financial concerns. I have very huge drinking concerns. How am I going to get my drink today, right? Who am I going to lie to, steal from, otherwise come up with the money I need to get that thing that I have to be okay and not jump off a bridge, that thing, that jumping off point. How do I do that? And what I did was I came into the program via a homeless shelter, and I went foot to pavement. Something awoke in me, and I just really went after this thing zealously. Like Bob says, with 1/2 the zeal, we went about getting our last drink. And I was a zealot. If you got between me and what I needed, you were in a bad spot. Like this was going to happen. I'm going to get what I need today. And I would start with nothing because, I'm homeless, I'm unemployable. And I would do whatever it took to make sure that I could drink, because there's a line in our book that I love. It says, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation. And man, that's where I had to be. Bill talks about it on page 6 at the end of the first paragraph. 2 bottles of gin and oblivion. Man, that's where I needed to be all the time. I couldn't deal with my life and where I was at 39, 38, 37 years old, because it wasn't supposed to be that way. We all have so much potential. We're above average intelligence. We're charismatic. People like us. Alcoholics, we got superpowers, man. And alcohol's the kryptonite. So, and so here I am, beating my hand on the bar. How did I end up here? But I was very determined. Yeah, when I got sober, thank God. And I had what they call the gift of desperation, or GOD. And so that pushed me, it motivated me to do everything they said to do. And I was dedicated to it. I just no longer a fringe member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I got in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous. And a pro tip for the newcomers, that's where the magic is. If you're miserable and you're unhappy, get in the middle, man, because we're having a ball. We're the 5%ers, and life is incredible here in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm a party girl. I want to be where the party is. So in the middle is where I'm going to be. But what I did is I worked so hard on 1 through 9, and and then I got to 10, nobody's harder on me than me, and I can do the inventory, and I can look for selfishness and self-centered. I can make amends immediately. Like, I'm all about that. And then on 11, I would do the prayers, right? So it says sought through prayer and meditation. Prior to this, we have been given a list of prayers. Every time your book says we ask God, that's a prayer. Sometimes your book says we said a prayer, and it actually calls it a prayer, but other times it just says we ask God. But isn't it that a prayer? When we're asking God, we ask God for the right thought or decision. We ask God to save us from anger in step 4. We ask God to, to take our will in our life in step 3. We ask God to remove our shortcomings in step 7. Like, the prayers have been laid out, and step 11 says, don't stop doing that. Don't stop doing the prayers we've outlined in the first 164 pages. But then the step goes on to say, and meditation. And that's where I got hung up. So I could do your prayers. I'll say your prayers. I'll hold your hand. I'll drink your coffee. I'll set up the chairs. I'll do whatever you want me to do. But I avoided meditation. And I did that successfully for about 5 years of my recovery. And what happened was I was still dealing with very significant rage issues. And I am a rager, and sober or drunk. Now, sober, I don't break his windows out of your house, and I probably won't run over you with my car, but I'm verbally assaultive to people. I have a trigger. I have a rage component to my life, and I was aggressive, and not all that went away because I did the steps. And again, living on the streets, I'd always been angry. I can't blame the streets. I'd always been kind of a girl that would get in a fight. I'm aggressive, and my grandfather was, I don't know, it just passed on, and when I get mad, I want to hit you. And if I don't hit you, I'm at least going to cuss you out, man. I have little control of my emotional nature when it comes to anger. Through the process of the 12 steps, I recognize anger is fear. When I got here and you said, what are your fears? I said, none. And I meant that in my mind, there were no fears. I wasn't afraid of anything. My God, I'd been to hell. What was I afraid of? And the truth is, anger protects the fear. Anger hides the sadness. Anger is a secondary emotion. There's something else going on. And it's in meditation that I can calm that beast and that I can connect with you. 5 years sober, I kicked in my neighbor's door and I threatened to kill everybody in the house. And I called my sponsor after I did that. And I said, when am I going to stop doing this, man? When am I going to stop bubbling up with this rage and anger that I can't control? Like, I can see myself doing it and I can't stop, She said, oh, honey, when you work all the steps. And I said, what do you mean? I'm 5 years sober. I work all the steps. I take women through the steps. And she said, what about the second half of 11, sweetheart? And she sent me to the 12 and 12. And once again, our literature nails it. I read the 12 and 12 and step 11, and there's all the excuses and reasons that I've used to avoid meditation. It's like they know, right? It's like they know us. And, but I was forced into step 11. 5 years, you're going to grow or go. What are you going to do? Are you going to enlarge on your spiritual life? Are you going to continue this maintenance? Are you going to continue down this path? And I love the old timers and people with 20 and 30 and 35 years of sobriety, and I want what they have, and they lean into this thing, man. They do all of this thing, at least the happy ones, and I want to be happy. And so I was forced. I was just driven into step 11, all of step 11. And if you're new, I didn't know what that looks like. I don't know anything about meditation. I never, it wasn't in my wheelhouse of expertise or experience. And so I went on YouTube. I love the internet, right? I went on YouTube and I Googled 2-minute guided meditation. And I literally just sat there for, trying to be quiet for 2 minutes. And it's hard for me to be quiet for 2 minutes. Got the ADHD, I'm always busy, got somewhere to go, payment, things to do. And just to sit in my breath, and try to listen, anchor to this voice on the YouTube thing. And I would struggle through a 2-minute meditation, but an effort was made. And I would do them. I just started doing that every day. And then I started playing with, different options on there. I thought, ooh, a 3-minute, I'm going to set the bar this morning. I'm really going to go for it, And I tried to do a 3-minute meditation or a 5-minute meditation. I found a loophole. There's meditations while you sleep. And I like those because I'll put that on and I can sleep through it, but an effort's being made, man. I'm making an effort. And there's a prayer by Thomas Merleau, and I don't want to misquote it, but essentially it says, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know what any of this will mean, but I believe that the desire to please my higher power pleases my higher power. And so I'm making this effort because I have a desire for this connection. Our book says he will not make too hard of terms for those who seek him. And that means even idiots like me can connect to this power greater than all of us, this universal source, this oneness, this place of love and light, whatever you call it. It's available to all of us, even an idiot like me with minimal effort. I can get there, but it's the effort. Am I willing to take the 2 minutes, the 5 minutes, the 3 minutes, the 10 minutes? Am I willing to put down my phone, turn off my TV, and in the moments before I go to bed, be with my breath? I've changed since meditate. When in early sobriety, if some woman came up and asked me to sponsor them, my home group would be behind her. Like they said, I 12 stomped women. It's like, you want to live or you want to die? What's your choice to be? I was one of those crotchety old timers at 4 years sober, just full of ego, beating you to death with the big book. Because I didn't know love and tolerance, and I didn't know gentleness, and that was all foreign to me. And meditation helped me find that place in me. And then when I'm connected to the source and I'm connected to you, I'm less likely to be aggressive with you or impatient with you. It helps me develop tolerance and love, genuine concern for another human being. And that's something I had none of when I got here. I remember at the homeless shelter, we were reading the big book and it said, love and tolerance is our code. And I looked at the girl next to me. I said, I'm fucked. It's their code. Like, they're kicking me out today. Like, I don't belong here, but the deal was you all were going to give me and show me love and tolerance. And then I was going to have some because it came from you. And then I was going to do these steps and this shifting, this development, this changing. I turned 13 years sober in March, and I called my sponsor. I said, I feel like a 13-year-old, man. I feel hormonal, like my face is broke out. My chest hasn't come in. My teeth are crooked. I'm awkward. I'm weird. I don't know what to say. I'm like in the adolescence of my sobriety, man. And I love it, because it means that there's shifting, that it continues. It continues. This isn't a one and done deal. This isn't a, whoo, you made it a year and now put it in neutral and coast it out. Man, no, we're on a path to enlarge our spiritual lives, to become useful and effective, right? So even in our literature, it says our purpose, our goal at this time, and I don't want to misquote, I am misquoting it, but it says to grow in effectiveness and understanding. How am I going to do that? How am I going to grow in effectiveness and understanding? And I got to keep doing that inner work. I got to keep doing that spiritual work. And here's the one thing I too want to point out. If you're new and you're skipping part of 11 and trying to do 12, you're not prepared for 12. Because sponsees are going to make you nuts. They're not going to do what you say. They're going to stand you up. They're going to inconvenience you beyond measure, because I got to go down 30 minutes this way to pick up a girl with no car, to drive an hour that way for the meeting. And she's playing on her phone, doesn't even appreciate that I picked her up and brought her here. Now I got to take her back home. I mean, like, we're nuts when we come in here. I got to have the patience, tolerance, and love and be fit for maximum service. And if I'm not doing an inventory intent and making amends, if I'm not sitting in prayer and meditation to develop in me what is necessary, then I am not effective in 12. My ego comes to 12. I'm going to start telling you what to do or what I start getting real judgmental. I start getting real, hostile. I start thinking I know what's best for somebody. Man, my ego will return. We have a saying in Kentucky, the body heals and the liar returns. Man, the ego's just waiting constantly. And our book says the ego must be smashed. But ego is me edging God out. And meditation is us and connecting to source. And if I can plug into a little bit of that, then I can be effective and understanding in my 12-step work. Otherwise, ego's in the way. I'm selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, inconsiderate, dishonest, and full of fear. And it's motivating my actions. Man, I'm back in the beginning. And this is a daily reprieve. So every day I got to do this, got to make this effort. I like who I am today. I'm not perfect. Ask my sponsees, ask my sponsor. Hell, ask my husband. He'd love to tell you. I'm not perfect, man, but I'm better. I'm better. I'm better than the woman that washed in here on March 6, 2010. And I'm better because of you. And I'm better because of the steps. And I'm better because I didn't balk. And I'm better because I could no longer evade or postpone the truth. And then that I just can't talk enough about the benefits of 11, man. And I'll get off in the deep end, man. There's some deep waters out there when you're talking about meditation and stuff. Man, I can get into Eckhart Tolle and Joe DeVance, and I can get into some real heavy spiritualists, man, and Dr. Gabor. I mean, like, there's some heavy stuff out there, and I'll swim out there in those deep waters like, I'm becoming supernatural, right? And I know I'm over my head, and I start drowning, and I get confused, and I just start swimming back to shore. And what I know about that is there's another poem, and it's by Shoemaker, and it's called I'll Stay in Matador. And it talks about men and women who get so spiritual, man. They go in the caverns, man. They're up there with God, and they're monks, and they've taken vows of silence, and they just sit in God's presence all day long, man. And that's great, and that's awesome, and we need those guys up there. But those guys up there, they can't hear the cries of the still suffering. So my place is by the door, so that when that blind, hopeless man or woman comes along that wall feeling for the knob, I'm going to be there to pull them in. And when they get scared in here and they want to run out, I want to be at that door to stop them and slow them down and tell them they're safe. And this is the easier, softer way. And I always invite them to come all the way in and sit all the way down. So practice that. It can be baby steps with 2 minutes, 3 minutes meditation. If you find yourself in the deep water and you're over your head, swim back to shore and go stand at the door, man. That's what I do. Maya, thank you so much for having me.